Somewhere along my financial journey, something changed. I started looking at money differently. Whenever I had extra money, I stopped thinking about what I could buy and started thinking about where I could invest it. And then I realized something I never expected. I had become addicted to investing. But here's the part that might surprise you. My investment journey didn't start with a successful investment. It started with me losing money. It actually started with me getting involved in a Ponzi scheme without even knowing it was one. I lost money. But strangely enough, that experience introduced me to something that would completely change the way I looked at money. It introduced me to investing, and today, whenever I have some extra money, one of the first things that comes to my mind is, how can I put this money to work? So how did I go from losing money in a Ponzi scheme to becoming what I jokingly call addicted to investing? Let me tell you my story. My investment journey started when I was introduced to what I thought was an investment opportunity. At the time, I didn't know enough about investing to recognize what it really was. It was a Ponzi scheme. Eventually, I lost money. Losing money is not something anyone wants to experience. But looking back, that experience taught me something I didn't expect. It made me curious. I started asking myself, is investing actually real? Because I had seen people putting money somewhere and expecting returns after a certain period. 1 month, 2 months, a year, even several years. I realized there was a legitimate concept behind investing. The problem was that I didn't yet know how to separate real investments from schemes that simply promise you money. And that became the beginning of my real investment journey. I became curious. I started making inquiries. I wanted to understand how legitimate investments actually worked. Where does the return come from? Who regulates the investment? What are the rules? What are the risks? What actually happens to my money after I invest it? The more questions I asked, the more I learned. I started discovering that legitimate investing wasn't about someone simply promising to double your money. There were rules. There were regulations. There were different types of investments. There were different levels of risk. And most importantly, there was a need to understand what you were actually putting your money into. That was a major turning point for me, because I stopped looking for something that simply promised me a return. I started looking for something I could understand. And I think that was one of the most important things I learned from my early experience. Don't just ask, how much can I make? Ask, what exactly am I investing in, and how does it work? When I eventually started investing properly, I was scared, and honestly, I think that's normal. Whenever I invested money, there was always that little voice in my head saying, what if I lose it? After all, I had already experienced losing money, so I wasn't completely fearless. But something changed as I continued learning. I began to understand that investing isn't about eliminating risk. It's about understanding risk and making decisions that are appropriate for you. I started learning about different investments and how they work. I started paying attention to my own financial situation, my age, my goals, my ability to tolerate risk, my time horizon, and gradually, I stopped looking at investing as simply put money here and hopefully make more money. It became, does this investment make sense for me? That was a completely different mindset. And this is where the addiction part of my story really begins. At some point, I noticed something strange about myself. Whenever I had extra money, I didn't automatically think about what I could buy. I started thinking, how can I invest this? My salary comes in, I'm thinking about investing. I make some money from a side hustle. I'm thinking about investing. I have some money left after taking care of my responsibilities. My mind goes straight to, where can I put this money to work? And that's when I actually had to laugh at myself. I thought, wait a minute, am I becoming addicted to investing? Because investing had gone from something I was afraid of to something I genuinely looked forward to. And if you've made it this far, I want to pause my story for just a moment and ask you something. What was the first thing that made you interested in investing? Was it a person, a YouTube video, a book, a financial mistake? Or maybe you simply became curious about making your money work for you? Tell me your story in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And keep watching, because there's something important I learned from my journey that I wish I understood much earlier. Now, I want to make something very clear. When I say I'm addicted to investing, I'm not saying I throw every penny I have into investments. Absolutely not. That's not responsible investing. I still have everyday expenses. I still have financial responsibilities. I still need money that is accessible when I need it. And I don't invest money simply because I'm excited about the possibility of making more. What changed was my mindset toward extra money. Before, extra money could easily become spending money. Today, I often see extra money as an opportunity to build something for my future. And I think that's a very important distinction. One of the biggest changes in my journey was that I stopped being interested only in returns. Of course, returns matter. That's part of why we invest. But I learned that you shouldn't look at an investment simply because somebody tells you, this one will make you a lot of money. I want to know, how does it work? What are the risks? What am I actually buying? How long am I expected to stay invested? Does it fit my goals? Does it fit my risk tolerance? Those questions became much more important to me. And that is something I would encourage anyone watching this to develop. Don't invest because everybody else is investing. Don't invest because somebody online said, this is the next big thing. And don't invest simply because you're afraid of missing out. Learn first, understand what you're doing. Then make your decision. When I look back at where I started, it's actually quite interesting. I started with an experience that could easily have made me say, I'm never investing again. I lost money, I didn't understand what I had gotten into, and I could have allowed that experience to make me permanently afraid of investing. But instead, it made me want to understand investing better. And that curiosity changed everything. I went from, what if I lose my money, to how does this investment work? Should I invest at all? Which investments actually make sense for me? How much of this extra money can I put to work? And that's why I don't regret learning from that experience. I definitely wouldn't recommend losing money as a way to learn about investing. But I learned something valuable from it. Today, I can honestly say that I've become deeply interested in building wealth. I enjoy learning about investments. I enjoy understanding how different financial products work. I enjoy seeing money not just as something to spend, but also as something that can potentially be put to work. And yes, I love investing. Maybe a little too much. But I think there is a healthy version of this mindset. Not an obsession with checking your portfolio every 5 minutes. Not constantly chasing the next investment. Not putting money into risky investments simply because you want higher returns. I'm talking about becoming intentional about your financial future. And here's what I want you to take from my story. You don't need to suddenly become an investment expert. You don't need to have thousands of dollars. You don't need to find the perfect investment. And you definitely don't need to copy someone else's portfolio. Start with learning. Understand your financial situation. Understand your goals. Understand your risk tolerance. Then, when you're ready, start investing according to what makes sense for you. Because building wealth doesn't usually happen because of one magical investment. It is often the result of making better financial decisions consistently over time. If somebody had told me at the beginning of my journey that losing money in a Ponzi scheme would eventually lead me to become passionate about legitimate investing, I probably wouldn't have believed them. But that's exactly what happened. The experience introduced me to investing. The loss made me ask questions. The questions made me learn. The learning helped me understand risk. Understanding risk helped me make better investment decisions. And those decisions eventually changed my relationship with money. So when I say, how investing became my addiction, I'm really talking about how I developed a strong desire to keep learning, keep investing responsibly, and keep building toward my financial future. So yes, I got addicted to investing, but I don't mean that I became addicted to blindly putting money into anything that promises a return. I became addicted to building wealth responsibly. I became addicted to learning. I became addicted to asking questions. I became addicted to thinking about what my money could become instead of only thinking about what it could buy today. And honestly, if we're going to develop an addiction, why not develop an addiction to something that can potentially improve our financial future? But remember, learn first, understand the risk, invest according to your own circumstances. Don't invest just because I do. Don't invest because your friend does. And don't invest because somebody on the internet told you that you'll become rich quickly. Your financial journey is yours. Start where you are, learn, make informed decisions, and build from there. If you learned something from this, like, subscribe to Finance with Successful Success, and share it with someone who keeps asking, how can I make better financial decisions? And before you go, I want to ask you one more question. Have you ever had a financial mistake that ended up teaching you something valuable? Tell me about it in the comments. I would genuinely love to hear your story. I'll see you in my next video.